Oh, God. I have to choose now? Okay, we found one. My favorite movie of all time. Goodfellas. AKA the greatest movie of all time. Well, to me at least. It's my favorite movie of all time. This is Martin Scorsese's masterpiece of cinema. Quotable dialogue, like go home and get your fucking shine box. You have effective storytelling. You have sharp editing that just goes so rapid that you feel like you're in a roller coaster. Mulholland Drive. I am a big fan of David Lynch. In fact, David Lynch is one of my most influential filmmakers. Not only is it a classic, but it breaks the rules of modern-day Hollywood filmmaking. And not only is it an effective story about the dangers of living in Hollywood, it's a dream, basically. You're basically living inside a dream. That's the best way to put it. This might be a big cliche opinion, but I'll have to go with Pulp Fiction. Also, another great film with quotable dialogue, a lot of great violence, and, and rich characters. This is a masterpiece of cinema, and I cannot recommend Pulp Fiction enough. My name is Connor Morley. I am a film director, actor, and screenwriter. I've directed Mrs. Halloway, The Scene, and the upcoming Fort of Rocky Point, and you are watching the Film Stock Podcast.
There's something you just said that's making, I'm just thinking about this now, but in regards to like Pearl versus Maxine, right? The character of Pearl being like so psychologically and emotionally available to the audience, and like you really get in her psyche. Whereas Maxine, I always felt like, by the nature of her character, was always keeping everybody at a distance and thereby almost keeping the audience at a distance. Maybe there was something to do with that. What do you think?
You could be right, because I think what worked in X is that you got invested into every character besides Maxine.
Mm-hmm.
But, as we know, Maxine is the final girl of X. And, once we're like done getting invested in those characters, we got invested in Maxine, and we wanted to see where she would go next in the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like the writing of her character in Maxine was two-dimensional, whereas the writing for Pearl was three-dimensional, and you got invested in her story, even though she was like a twisted, disturbed basket case.
Yeah.
But that's what made Pearl such a great movie, was that it was deep, it was disturbing, and it wasn't afraid to show you what she was.
I did appreciate some things about Maxine, though, in regards to all the references they threw in there.
Oh, yes.
I think my favorite one was they legitimately ripped Jake Gitz from Chinatown.
Yeah.
They took his outfit and put it right on Kevin Bacon. And I was like, I don't know why, but I love that.
I will say this, Kevin Bacon was one of the bright spots.
He was definitely, there's not much Kevin Bacon's in where I'm not like, you just did it for me.
There should have been a movie about Kevin Bacon's character, for crying out loud.
Yeah, seriously. That's not a bad idea. Maybe that'll be the next iteration of the X franchise. They'll go back and they'll trace his character.
Yeah, a sleazy detective that did a lot of bad things in his past. I kind of want to get invested into that story. Like if Bad Lieutenant was a horror movie.
Yeah. Some would argue it is.
Yeah.
Especially Herzog's version.
Oh, God.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. I appreciate it. So we crossed paths recently at Summer Dance, and that totally blew me away that I didn't recognize you. I told you, I don't think I recognized you without the hat and the sideburns, but you were in Rob Levinson's Thursday Special.
Correct. And not only was I an actor in that movie, I was an associate producer of that too.
Were you?
Exactly, yeah. So what happened was around early February, Rob gave me a text message, and he just told me he had this idea for a short film that's set in a New York deli, and it's based on his Jewish heritage, and it's called Thursday Special. And I was like, yeah, I am totally on board with this. I want to get involved in this. Because, playing someone that's not me is a challenge to do, but I'm not afraid to do it. Because, I'm not Jewish. I'm of Irish background.
Hey-o.
Hey, Irish representation. But kind of like Marlon Brando in The Godfather, or Robert De Niro in Once Upon a Time in America, playing someone ethnic from a different ethnic culture is a challenge, but a risk I'm willing to take.
And Rob did a really good job at writing those characters too. It's not like you were going in with a blank slate.
Exactly. He didn't make them stereotypical. He actually made them feel human.
Yeah.
And not only did it feel human, but I guess that's what makes it so great was that he made it human while still being funny. He wasn't trying to make fun of the Jewish stereotype. It wasn't trying to make Jewish people look bad. It's just a celebration in Jewish culture.
Yeah, and I think he did a really good job at that. Like you said, he wasn't making fun of it. He was like really ingraining you into their story and giving them 3-dimension, and it was quite nice.
It was, and being a part of this project, it was an honor and a pleasure to be a part of that movie.
So now you brought up acting. I think what's fascinating about this particular conversation is that we haven't talked before. Like, we didn't end up linking up before the podcast, so I'm getting your story fresh right now. Do you have a background in acting? Like, did you go to school for it? Has it always been of interest to you, or is that something that just kind of came about with Rob's project?
Well, it actually came way before Rob's project. In fact, I started acting in high school, and it was like it started off as a little play called 12 Angry Men, and I got
a little play. Yeah. 12 Angry Men. Yeah.
And I got to play juror number 3. And reading the script and getting into this character is like, oh my God, this character's an asshole. I love him.
Now, is juror number 3 the guy that was the holdout all the way up until the end?
Yes, Lee J. Cobb's character in the Sidney Lumet film.
Yeah.
That's basically who I played. And
that's a hell of a character to take on as your first role.
Oh, I know. And it was like something I was like getting invested in. I would also take inspiration from other actors' roles. Like, one of my 2 influences to play juror number 3 was Steve Buscemi in Reservoir Dogs and Ray Liotta in Goodfellas.
Sure.
So try to get that very heavy accent, and that grit to the character.
Yeah, kind of a little bit more of a tough background where he would probably be a little less forgiving to the situation that the jurors are presented with.
Yes, and a lot more ruthless.
Yeah.
Like, when I played him, I was like angry. I was pissed off, and that the next juror number 8 would oppose me of thinking that the kid was not guilty.
So that got you started in high school, and did you do all the plays and whatnot throughout high school? Did you go to college for it?
No, unfortunately not in college. I studied film production when I was in college, so I took like a very long break from acting. And it wasn't until, like, let's say 2023, like, something sparked me to get back into acting. Like, I started doing like this little fake commercial called The Bee Hammer for Adam Carbone's TV series.
Shut up. Do you know Adam Carbone?
I do know Adam Carbone. You know Adam Carbone?
I know him. Yes. I haven't worked with him in so long. But no, we were like production assistants together when I first got started in the industry. And then like he made this big reality TV show that I was assistant director on. It was called Slug House. There's this fucking wild thing where like all these people are invited off Craigslist to go to this house with the chance of winning $1 million, but it's run by like this crazy Indian man who is at war with a gigantic slug, and like people disappear in the night. Like, it was crazy.
Yep, so that's an Adam Carbone movie, all right.
That's an Adam Carbone special. So, okay, I'm sorry. So you go back with these.
So it was a spin-off of his TV series, The Linda Eldridge Program, starring Sissy O'Hara.
Yep.
And it's called The Garden of Wonder. And I got to be part of like this fake commercial where we had to exterminate bees with hammers. It's called The Bee Hammer.
Gotcha. Okay.
And once production ended, I just felt like this riveting excitement going on. I'm like, oh my God, that was fun. Like, should I go back to acting? Should I do that?
Yeah.
And then then a few months afterwards, it was like around springtime, my friend and filmmaker Richard Griffin was is working on this LGBTQ web series called Pansy Vision. And basically the premise is like an alternate history of Hollywood where LGBTQ cinema thrived. So imagine if Citizen Kane, but Citizen Kane was gay. And
yeah.
Like, imagine if Cleopatra, but Cleopatra was a lesbian. So it's kind of like that. And I did a scene where I played the street thug, and I was being like apprehended by this gay cop, and I'm like, and it was so fun to do. I was like getting into the character. I was like yelling, screaming, "I'm not no fucking rat, you goddamn pig!"
Yeah.
And it was a very short appearance, but I had fun doing it. I'm like, should I go back into acting again?
You got the bug.
I got the bug, and then I did the 48-hour film project. I directed my short film, The Scene. I couldn't find anyone to play the director, so I decided to play it myself, and acting alongside my buddy Samson Zillick. And once we started acting, just getting into the characters, writing, I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm going to do acting. That tears it.
The Scene was fun, by the way. I saw that.
Oh, thank you so much.
That was a fun short. Was that, you said that was for a 48, or that just kind of came up? You guys wanted to do something?
That was originally made for the Providence 48-hour film project.
Nice. And how'd that go?
Oh, it went fantastic. Like, it was, we picked the right genre. We got comedy, and I already had the idea for a comedy in my head. I'm like, okay, great, I'm going to write this down. And then like a few hours later, sent it to my cast and crew members. And once we all wrapped it up, we finally wrapped it up right an hour before the deadline approached. And then it went on to premiere at the Avon Cinema in Providence, Rhode Island. That's actually my favorite movie theater. So if you ever...
Avon?
Yep, Avon.
Yeah.
So if any of you guys here live in Providence or have been to Providence, I highly suggest checking out the Avon Cinema. It is a beautiful little theater right around Thayer Street near Brown University.
We're actually all going to be up there on Sunday. There's another filmmaker who just wrote, produced, and directed a short film. I think it's like 15 minutes or whatever, and he's going to be premiering it at the Avon. If you're around, you should come.
What's it called?
Oh, I don't know. Sean, what's the name of it? No, I can't remember it either. I only know about it like very vaguely through a coworker of mine who helped produce it. And it was ironic because my friend Alex, he had called me maybe like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, and he was asking me for some advice and, blah, 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 blah. And then they filmed it and it kind of went away. And I talked to my friend Alex again maybe like a month ago, and he's like, oh, well, that short film that we did, it's actually going to be premiering at the Avon. If you're around, come on out. Fast forward to like 3 days ago, and Sean is like, if any of you guys are around, I booked this director on the podcast, and his film's going to be premiering at the Avon. And I was like, is this the same project? So it is. My Kind of People. And I'm sorry, remind me of the director's name again? Joe Picozzi. Yeah, so we're going to go and see Joe's film, My Kind of People, Sunday. So if you're around, you should look into it. Come join us.
This Sunday?
This Sunday.
Well, I have nothing better to do, so yeah.
Hell yeah. No, this is why, this is another part of why we love doing the podcast, is because we just, we're meeting all these different filmmakers who are here locally, and I don't know, doing our best to kind of stitch the community together.
Hey, Rhode Island cinema is growing. We all got to stick together.
Seriously, I think there's you're from Warwack. You're here in Rhode Island, right?
Yep, correctamundo.
Born and raised and whatnot.
Born and raised.
Did you where'd you go for film school? You said you went to film school.
Yep, I went to Rhode Island College.
You went to Rick. I went to URI.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. How was your film department while you were there? When did you graduate?
I graduated in 2020, and like if it wasn't for my professors, Vince Bollinger, Ross Silbilski, Catherine Kalinak, and Bonnie McDonald, and everyone else, like I probably would not carry the knowledge of filmmaking as I do now.
Did you always have an interest in filmmaking?
Oh, absolutely. Ever since I was this big.
Yeah.
Yep. I was like, my introduction to my love for cinema would happen to be at 4 years old.
Tell me.
Jaws. Yep. Jaws.
Yeah. That was your first? That was the one that kind of clicked?
That's the one that clicked.
Hell yeah.
And then, as I grew older, I watched like more horror movies at 9 years old, like, the Amityville Horror, Friday the 13th, Halloween, and it made me want to make horror movies. Like, I just wanted to, I want to make something as very dark, scary, gory, whatever. It's like, here's the thing, little 10-year-old me, like, getting invested in this kind of stuff. And I'm like, and my dad was very supportive. My mom was like, you're hurting your son. You got to take him to a therapist.
Yeah. I remember my experience being somewhat similar. I never really wanted to make horror movies, but I remember I was shown Chucky 2, Child's Play, at way too young of an age. And there was like a 2-week period where I was like, waking up in the middle of the night thinking that fucker is coming to get me. And then my dad showed me Night of the Living Dead and all the Vincent Price, like Roger Corman movies. Yes. So that was kind of my trial by fire as well. For me, though, it wasn't ironically enough that you chose Goodfellas. Goodfellas is probably in my top 5. I know it's like an arbitrary number to say like you have a top 5 when there are so many good movies out
I
there.
know it's hard. Like, you know, you got like the classics, you got the foreign movies, you got the blockbusters, you got the comic book movies, you got the horror movies. So it's like there's so much to choose from. But that's what makes cinema great.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down, but I think that for me it was Goodfellas when it was like that. I watched that movie at an age where I was like, how are they doing this? Like you talked about when you were picking your movies, like the editing and the cinematography and like the voiceover. And it was just like, that was the first time I was aware, like somebody's behind all of this, creating this experience. Like how does one do that? Like you can do this for a living? Like at a very young age, I was just obsessed with it.
I know. And you think it's all from one director, but it's not. It's from a big team. It's a repertory.
Oh my God, yeah.
And, you know, it's like they all did this together because they enough to complete one vision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's how filmmaking is done.
Yeah. It's a crazy, crazy world. We get to play make-believe for a living.
Yeah, but hey, you know what? Fuck it. Let's do it.
Exactly. So I want to ask you about, what is it, Mrs. Halloway?
Yes, Mrs. Halloway.
How'd that come about? That was a fun one, by the way.
Thank you so much. That is actually one of my proudest films I've ever made.
It was good.
Yeah, it was made with a labor of love. So this happened around the time when it was 2021, right around the time we know COVID-19 was fading. And, you know, I was still just staying at home watching some of my favorite movies. And I stumbled upon, I revisited a classic, Serial Mom. And Serial Mom, I'm a big fan of John Waters. He's one of my favorite directors. Serial Mom, you know, I was just watching it over and over again, that and Female Trouble. And then I watched Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. That's one of my favorite movies growing up as a teenager. And just watching those movies again just gave me an idea for this little short film about this crazed widow who will do anything she can to win the pie baking contest, even if it means killing someone for it.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
But, and, you know, I know it was around 2021. Started like thinking who should play Mrs. Halloway. I already had a person in mind. Her name is Sissy O'Hara. And if you ever think about casting someone, get Sissy O'Hara. She is a phenomenal actor and also a great friend.
Facts. It's been a while since I've been in contact with Sissy. Well, we saw each other at Summer Dance, but it had been a while since I had been in contact with her before. But she actually was in one of my projects, and like actually she was in a couple of my projects. But she's great. She's a great actor. She's a great lover of the New England film community.
Absolutely.
And how did you two meet?
Oh, we met at this goes all the way back to 2019. We met at this little film event called Cocktails and Screens, and we got to screen one of my short films I made in college called Welcome to Warwack. It's like an animated comedy about a tiny stick figure who's on his trip to the candy store. Okay. And, you know, the audience laughed. Sissy was right in front of me. She could not stop laughing. And when everything ended, she came up to me saying, "I love that movie." And, you know, we started having a good conversation, just talking about stuff. And she said, "You got to put me in your movies one of these days." I'm like, "Absolutely, I will." And we did.
Fast forward to
2020.
Mrs. Halloway.
Mrs. Halloway.
Hell yeah. How long did that take you to write? Did it just kind of flow out of you? Or?
It flew right out of me. I was just writing the story. I'm like, oh my, on like, you know, a notebook going, oh my God, this is getting good. This is getting good. Holy shit, I'm coming up with this. I'm writing this.
Yeah.
And then I'm reading the story. I'm like, holy fuck.
I did this.
Yeah. And I started writing my screenplay, my first draft. And I'm looking at this telling myself, this is the best script I've ever written. And it's only the first draft.
Yeah.
I shared it with a couple people to get some feedback what I can work on, and you know, after a couple of rewrites, a little re-edits, like it was already ready. I'm like, this is perfect. This is to me, that was the best script I've ever written. Sent it to the cast members, sent it to the crew members, and they were all on board with it. And we got together to make a very funny, gory comedy horror film.
Very gory. Very funny.
Very funny indeed.
Yeah.
Especially the funny part.
It was really good. So what was the production process like? I mean, did you guys, how many days did you film? Like I always ask this of our guests. You can answer if you want to. You can, you know, tell me to go fuck myself. But like, what was the budget size for a project like that?
The budget size, I want to round it up to at least $1,000, maybe 2,000.
That's good stretching your money.
It is.
Yeah, you had multiple locations. Like, how long did you film for?
We only filmed for like 5 days, basically.
Stretched $1,000 over 5 days. That's fucking awesome.
I know. It's like, it's like, we had a lot of free availability to film on certain locations. Like we were able to film at the back of the John Brown Francis Elementary School. It's called something else now. Warwack Public Early Learning Center. There you go.
Yep, I'm familiar.
And, it was free to like roam around the weekends because, it's like only a baseball field. Everybody gets to go there, walk their dogs. So I'm like, yeah, why not film a pie baking contest scene over there?
Yeah.
And I was also able to film Mrs. Halloway's house at a neighbor of mine who was willing to film those scenes with us. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, so free of charge, like didn't have to like pay for anything other than pay for my cast and crew members.
Hell yeah. And did you edit it yourself or did you work with an editor? What was that process like?
I worked with an editor. His name is James Kinder. And if you're ever looking for someone who can like really help edit, definitely recommend James. He can edit everything at a rapid pace.
Hell yeah. How long did the editing take?
It took about like a good few months. Like
few months?
Few months, like, once, like about a month for the rough cut, and then a couple of months for the final cut. We just had to like tidy up some things for audio and editing.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're going through like your initial rough cut, I'm always interested in people's process when it comes to like, editing or screenwriting and whatnot. When you go through your rough cut, is it the kind of thing where you'll like lay it all in and then walk away and like come back to it, reassess what you've done? Or is it the kind of thing that you're very much just like in it from start to finish, just making minor tweaks here and there? Or do you ever go back and like recut a scene? Have you ever had that experience?
I'm always by the editor's side. Like I will be there, like once he's ready to edit something, I will be with him there since day one. And we would be working on this together. I'll be like, okay, let's try it like this. Like, okay, how about we instead of using that clip, we use the other clip that we shot before. And that's pretty much it. Cause I'm really passionate about my vision when it comes to filmmaking. And I really want it to look exactly how I envisioned that story.
Yeah. I mean, it clearly has a clear point of view. So, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Now it's funny you bring up John Waters. I hadn't put two and two together because I'm not well versed in John Waters, admittedly, but I've seen clips and whatnot on YouTube. So now that you bring that up, I can see like stylistically a little bit clearer what you were going for, both with like the costume design, both with, the sound design, and also with the cinematography. There's kind of like a washed out 50s romantic glow to the image. Was that something that you guys achieved in camera, or is that something that you worked and tweaked to get in post?
It's a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Because, we want to make it look like it was like this nifty 50s melodrama.
Yeah.
But, it's like, that's also thanks to the costuming and like, just the dialogue between characters. Make it look like that. And then when it came to like the editing process, we were definitely color graded to give it that nice sparkle to it.
Fair enough. Now, out of curiosity, do you work in the film industry?
Occasionally. Like, I worked on my last big project was Kira Sedgwick's feature-length film called Space Oddity. And it started...
Oh, yeah. That was produced by Squid Farm, Tara Reid, yeah. Because I did the movie immediately after that with that same production company. They filmed 2 here that summer. So you were on the Kira Sedgwick movie.
Yes, I was.
And what were you doing for that?
Well, I was a production assistant for a couple of days.
Just be mindful of that mic for me.
Thank you.
You can move it if you want to move. So you were a production assistant on it.
Yep. And, I would like, it basically was kind of like doing odd jobs. Like one day you'll just be like directing background to like get to their positions or telling them when to go. And on the other day you'll be either like, feeding for the cast and crew. And the other days you will just be like, listening to the director what they want you to do. And that was pretty much it. It was like, a lot of work, but it was worth it.
Yeah. It's a lot of hurry up and wait,
It was. But I had a good time doing it because not only did, not only did I work hard on it, but got to meet some really cool people there, especially Kira Sedgwick
Mhm.
and Alexandra Shipp, who's in the Barbie movie.
Yep.
Like, she's a very nice girl.
Yeah. It's always interesting too. So I work in the film industry. I'm a locations manager or assistant locations manager, generally, whatever the project is. And something that I've been talking to our guests recently about is this idea of like, these bigger productions versus these smaller productions. And like, there's something about those smaller productions where it almost feels like summer camp, where like, you really get to know all the cast and the crew because like it's not a big budget. There's not like 200 people around. So that's interesting. And that's also pretty cool that you were able to kind of meet people. I mean, did you pick up tidbits along the way on that project, like words of advice from the grips or, hair and makeup or anything like that?
Yeah. Always treat your production assistants with respect.
Mm,
And I always keep that as a top priority.
mm,
So, like, let's say like, if a PA is being mistreated by, let's say, the production manager or production coordinator, like that's something to keep in mind. I try to like, take it easy on them, not make them do too many things at once. I've seen that happen and was not pleased with it.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great for morale.
No, it isn't. It is not. That's my only issue when working as a production assistant.
Mm,
So I made that specifically. Okay, what can I do to make it more flexible for them, make it more comfortable for them to work at,
mm.
where they're not stressing out, where they're not like being mistreated. And so I would always take notes about that, and then make those improvements on a film set,
Hmm.
especially my own.
Sure. Kind of set the tone for everybody who's going to be working with you.
Exactly. Make it a welcoming environment. Don't make it like this stressful, hateful environment. Because you know what it does? It breaks your dreams as a filmmaker.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't do any help for the project that you're currently working on because it's like if you go into a project with kind of a dictatorial mentality or like putting people down or stressing everybody out, people, in my experience, find themselves closed off to the creative process, and you don't get the best out of everybody if you do that.
Exactly. Because, to me, it's like you got to treat these people like they are your family or your friends.
Hmm.
Like you got to give them respect.
Mm.
That's what they're looking for. And, a lot of people who are outside of Hollywood, they want to be those big filmmakers. They want to be those big directors. They want to be those movie stars. So for them to work on a big film production and then have them be stepped on like ants, like that breaks their spirit, and we can't let that happen again.
I agree, man. I agree. I think something that's really cool about the film community here in New England, or at least from my experience and the experience that a lot of my coworkers and I have shared, how did Cam Morton put it? We just had Cam on the podcast, and he said something to the effect of like, in New England, they're gonna speak to you rough, but like it's kind of a family where it's like, yeah, they're a little bit rough around the edges, but you can tell that everybody kind of here in the New England film community is really like looking out for each other and really wants to, do their best job at their specific craft and kind of elevate the pictures so that it can be the best that it can be. And I think that's such a good way of operating, don't you?
I agree. And my experience with Kira Sedgwick, she does exactly that.
Mm.
She will be demanding on what needs to be done, but she treats you with respect.
Mm.
And she is always polite. And once everything's done, she's like, "Thank you so much for your hard work. Like, you've done a fantastic job today."
I also think that's a quality of a good leader. The director generally being the leader on set, where it's like, you don't want somebody who's going to be like, well, what do you want to do next? You want somebody who knows exactly what they want to do.
Okay, so next thing we're going to do scene 8, the whatchamacallit. We're going to do the scene where we're like, having a fight.
Here's how it's going to go. Here's the blocking. Here's what I need from you is the grip. Here's what I need from you is the camera. Here's what I need from you is the PAs. And it might seem a little harsh, but it's like, at least somebody's telling us exactly what needs to be done. It's like, where you stand with them.
I know. It's like you can't stay wet behind the ears. You got to be precise.
Yeah, it's true. So what are you working on now?
Oh, well, I'm happy to announce that I have officially wrapped up production for a horror short film called The Fort on Rocky Point.
Hell yeah. Oh, that's right. You had mentioned that when we were standing outside a little while ago. What can you tell us about it?
Well, it's more like a psychological horror film about this guy who is like afraid to go to this fort as there's like as he believes there's an evil presence behind it.
Hmm.
And he tries to convince his very skeptical friend that it's there. So that's all I can say. I don't want to spoil much, but the aesthetic of it, like it's like if Stanley Kubrick directed The Wicker Man.
Okay. I've got a visual in my head of what that could be. Yeah.
Yeah, it was originally just like the scene. This was originally made for the Providence 48-hour film project.
So you had already done a version of this.
Yes, I did, but it did not get completed because it didn't get handed in on time. So despite my disappointment, I just reflected on it. It's like, you know what? Forget it. We're going to make this its own thing.
Kind of, sticking it to the 48, so to speak.
I don't want to say that because I love the 48. But even if if you can't like get it in on time, you can at least make it your own movie instead and get it out there to other festivals.
So when you went into production the second time around, did you end up using anything that you shot at the 48, or it was completely starting from square one?
Starting back from square one, in fact, because we
It
had to like,
was. It was, yeah.
oh.
Starting from square one. I was
pretty much, yeah. So it's like, we had to like, I couldn't really get like my old crew for like the scene and Mrs. Halloway back together. So I had to find some new crew to help me out with here. Jimmy Caputo, my friend, was my assistant director, and he found a couple people who worked at Brown, and they came in to work with us, and their talent behind the scenes was incredible. Like the DP just knew how to shot everything in a 1-point perspective, and the sound operator really captured some good audio that made it easy to like mix and put together.
Hell yeah. How long did you guys shoot for?
Oh, we shot for like about a day, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
That was
like
it?
I said, like I said, it was originally for the 40-hour film project. So I can't even speak today. Just wrapping everything up in a day, it just felt liberating.
So the idea kind of being you almost challenged yourself with your own 48, but it wasn't, write the thing, film the thing, edit the thing, deliver the thing. It was more like, okay, we already have the story. Let's just take one day to get it right.
One day to get it right. Exactly.
Gotcha. And where'd you shoot?
At Rocky Point Park, of course.
Of course. There's not really a fort over there, though.
It's that little, that little, I don't know, it's not a fort, but it's like, that brick, small, it is kind of like a fort almost, but.
Maybe point me in the right direction. I'm trying to think of where that would be.
On the hill, when you go up the hill, you see like this.
Yeah, it kind of in the woods, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah. I actually do know what you're talking about. Yes.
It was exactly that with all the graffiti in it.
Yep.
And, it felt like a character. That's what made it work.
Did you have a lot of actors in this, or was it
just me and Jeff Blanchett?
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Do you find it weird directing and acting?
No, not at all. In fact, I think it helps a lot.
Helped in what way?
Both the acting and the directing sides. It goes either way, but I would say mostly acting because as a writer and a director, I have a vision of how this character is supposed to act.
Mm-hmm.
So. Definitely more on the acting side.
Okay, fair enough. Now, with all of these projects, so the scene was done for the 48, so that was already into a festival circuit. But for Mrs. Halloway and for this, I know you just wrapped up production, but did Halloway do the festival circuit, and do you intend on throwing this one into the festival circuit as well?
Yes and yes. Mrs. Halloway actually entered in the festival circuit. It's already finished. It's now available on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But it entered into like about 15 festivals.
Was that the first time you had ever done like a festival circuit outside of 48?
No. There were other short films I've done that have gone to festivals before Mrs. Halloway.
Mm-hmm.
There was Cochon, which is a stop motion short film about a tiny pig statue wandering around the kitchen. This was made during the COVID-19 pandemic when I had nothing better to do but just make my own short films.
Sure. What's sorry, I know what stop motion is. What is the process like with stop motion? Like, how'd you go about doing that? Like, how long did that take you?
Oh, it took me about a good few hours. I want to say maybe 5 hours tops.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah, because it was about like a minute and a half short film, and I just wanted to like do a little, just try to like just move the little pig statue, like centimeter by centimeter, just wandering around a little kitchen, but it was so much fun to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you growing up, you never lost. It doesn't sound like you have any, like, you're not jaded by the film industry whatsoever. You, like, the way you speak, you've got like that childlike passion still for creating something out of nothing.
Exactly. Like, the thing is, what I love about the indie film community is that, we stick to our passion. We don't get burned out. But even though it's gonna be rough. There's no such thing as an easy production. There's gonna be obstacles that you're gonna face, but you got to expect it to happen.
Yeah.
And if you expect it to happen, you will not be as disappointed.
It's so true. We so Ace and my other producing partner Jimmy, we there's always something kind of in the pipeline, or we're dreaming about stuff, and we've refrained from now on from saying like, oh yeah, this is going to be an easy production, because you're right, there's no such thing as an easy production, because they're always going to have unforeseen problems, even if you have the best laid plans, and somebody's 10 minutes late, or it took 2 hours to set up a shot when we had budgeted for a half hour or whatever it may be. So yeah, but I think for me that's a lot of I don't know. I think that's a lot of the fun, and maybe why this industry still has like a hold on me is like you're playing 3D chess. It's
Pretty
like
much.
the most. I don't know. These are the kinds of problems that I want to solve. Like they're just so much fun.
They are.
Don't you agree? Or
Absolutely.
yeah.
And it's like, again, I love filmmaking.
Mhm.
I love acting. I love writing scripts. I'm not going to let whatever obstacle comes my way stop me from doing what I love doing.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's so true. Yeah, man. So I mean, okay, so you did this, and are you in post-production with this? Like, is it going to be a quick turnaround, or?
It is in post production. I don't know if it will be in a quick turnaround, because we're still we're still working on the audio, but it is almost finished.
Do you like the editing process? I know that you were talking about working with your editor, from day one until it's done, but do you ever find yourself being like, what have I done?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah.
But we pull it through.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. So I'm curious. Let's go back to this. I just want to debate you, or maybe just get your side of the equation here, because I've said this on other podcasts. Whenever somebody picks a David Lynch film, I'm always like, all right, we've got something to talk about. I want to understand your perspective here, because I've said this multiple times. I'll say it again. I stand true to this perspective. I am so wildly happy that a person like David Lynch exists in this world. Him as a creative person, as an artist, like everything about him, I love. I think he's phenomenal. I don't get any of his movies. They've never clicked for me. Can you help me understand? Like, what? I know you had talked about like the dreamlike nature of Mulholland Drive, but it's so abstract. It's like so out there. What's the appeal? What's the appeal to David Lynch for you?
The appeal for me is his surrealism.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he makes these weird, out of this world kind of movie. Like my introduction to David Lynch was Eraserhead. At midnight on the IFC channel, my dad called up to me and said, "Hey, Connor, want to watch this movie?" I was like, "Yeah, sure," because I wasn't asleep. I was still just awake. I was a very eccentric teenager at the time. So walking into the living room, Eraserhead's on. I'm watching like the mother feed the baby. I'm going, what is this? What is going on here? And it's just so abstract and so weird and nightmarish. And I was getting so drawn into this story, whatever you call it. And when it ended, my jaw just dropped on the floor. I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't know what just happened before me. but I loved it.
It's a pretty
was
crazy movie.
It was crazy. That's what makes it so good. It's different from your traditional Hollywood type of movie.
That movie for me was so unsettling that I've never watched it since. Again, I can appreciate the craft behind it, and especially I love the behind the scenes information. Like, didn't it take him like 3 years to make that?
3 years to make a movie. I pray to God that doesn't happen to me, because I've already written like 3 outlines for 3 feature-length films. I'm hoping to get one done.
Yeah.
And it is a horror movie. So I don't want to say much about that, but this one feature-length idea I have is like if cruising had vampires.
If cruising had vampires, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like pretty interesting concepts.
It really is.
Yeah. Okay. Now I've got so many more questions, but you can't really talk about
I
it.
can't talk about them yet.
Can you say, like, so you said as an outline, do you have any plans to like start putting it into a script format, or is it already in kind of a script format?
One is currently in a script format.
Okay. Is that Cruising with Vampires?
Yeah, Cruising with Vampires.
Yeah. That's interesting. So going back to David Lynch, you said Eraserhead. That was your first experience with him. Didn't it just like leave such a pit of despair in your stomach after you finished it?
No, it left me an open mind of imagination.
Fair enough. What's your favorite Lynch film?
Oh, you have to make me choose?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to give you a top 3.
All right.
Okay. Eraserhead, Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive.
Fair enough. I do like Blue Velvet. Blue Velvet was interesting to me, probably mainly because of Dennis Hopper's character.
My God. Yeah, pretty.
He was unhinged in that
Oh, my
movie.
God. He was psychotic.
Yeah. Dennis Hopper, he's a good one.
He should have gotten an Oscar for that performance.
I don't know.
Not sure if you agree with me or not.
Maybe. It was a dark one. It was a very dark one. Sorry.
That's all good.
I was just, that's a bold statement, Cotton. That's a bold statement.
It's a bold one, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Do you have any theory behind, like, when you go into the edit, is there any theory behind how you cut a project?
Any theory? No theory at all. Just get it ready. I already know what I have envisioned. So once the editor starts editing stuff, I'm looking at and going, okay, this works. Let's do it like that. Let's do that. That's pretty much my theory on it. Is just on a surface level. I really don't have any deep process on how to edit a movie. But usually I let the editor like just work their magic while I'm still like saying, oh, let's work it like this. Let's add that one in. But I know that they can edit something at a very rapid pace, very energetic. So it's pretty much that. I'm mumbling here, but
no, it's all good. I'm not trying to do a gotcha. I just think it's interesting. Again, something else I talk about in regards to Goodfellas. I'm sure you've seen it. There's this great behind the scenes documentary on the making of Goodfellas, and it interviews, Thelma and all the cast and some of the other people who were involved. But one of the favorite tidbits that Thelma threw out there in that documentary, she's like, yeah, with Marty, it's like we don't care about continuity at all. Like we're editing for performance and what's the most engaging on an emotional level. So I'm thinking of the scene with what's the guy's name? Paulie, thank you.
Paul Sorvino.
Yeah, Paul Sorvino. There's that scene early on, and he's like, Paulie, I'm scared. The guy's crazy. You should put him down or something.
Yeah, he's
and it's the cigar, and the continuity's all over the place.
Yeah, it's like he's smoking a cigar, and the next shot he's not smoking a cigar. Where's the cigar? Where's the smoke?
And for the longest time, I loved Scorsese's movies from a very young age, but for the longest time, I would just be when you get in that stage where you're like, I'm gonna be a filmmaker, and you've kind of got these pretensions, and you still haven't had your bubble burst.
Exactly.
And I remember being a young kid, and I would be like, God, the editing in this movie is fucking terrible. Thelma Schoonmaker, what does she know about editing? And then it's you spend time in these behind the scenes, and you watch all these other movies, and I'm like, actually, she's kind of a fucking genius.
She is.
And she's right. Screw continuity. What's going to get you the most engaging, audience what's going to get the audience most engaged in the film is, I think, what should personally win out. Like, we just did a short film maybe about a year ago now, maybe a little bit longer. It was called Odessa, and Ace was the editor for that, and we took the same mentality. We're like, fuck the continuity, dude. Like, not so far that like you're gonna throw the audience out of it, but like, yeah, who cares? Like, if his hand was here, but now it's here. It's like, is his performance engaging?
I don't focus on that because you know what it does? It makes it a waste of time.
It makes it a waste of time. You get too in your head about it.
Exactly.
And you're not like really giving yourself over to the process.
Like, I know, like, one of my favorite directors is Stanley Kubrick, but what I try not to be is a complete perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes away our time.
Mm-hmm.
It actually puts production and post-production to a complete halt, where you're probably not going to get it even done. So it's just best to, like, put your tiny little tidbits aside and focus on what really matters. It's telling a story.
Yeah. And the stories that you're currently interested the most are horror.
Yes, horror movies. But I'm not afraid to tackle into comedy. I'm not afraid to tackle into crime drama. Like, and I'm not afraid to tackle into like mystery or fantasy or anything else. Like,
you're a guy who's entranced by it all.
Exactly. But it's like horror, it just holds a special place for me.
Yeah. Well, when, you break in with Eraserhead and Jaws.
Dario Argento movies too.
Those will leave imprints on you.
Especially David Lynch movies.
Yeah. What do you shoot with, the camera-wise?
So usually that's up to my DPs. They just shoot with like either a Blackmagic or a Panasonic, or even a Canon camera. Like it all varies, but they're all digital. So to answer your question, I do shoot with digital.
You shoot digitally. Have you ever been interested in trying your hand with film?
I would love to work on 35 millimeter film one day.
Yeah. Have you worked ever with 16?
No, I have not.
So that was something that I appreciated. I don't know what your you talked about all the professors that, encouraged you in your filmmaking journey. Something that was interesting when I was at URI is that they had a mandatory class that was using a crank Bolex 16 millimeter camera, and you had to complete a course where you use black and white film stock in this Bolex, and that was a fucking fascinating experience, dude. I failed miserably on my first assignment because it went over my head about like proper exposure and like, working with a light meter. And I just got all my measurements wrong. I got my exposure wrong. I was so excited to get the footage back and watch it in class. And I'm like, this is all black.
Yeah.
But I think it's an invaluable experience. So you obviously didn't work with film, but like, what was one of your most, what's a class that you took that kind of stood out to you in college?
It would have to be production class with Bonnie McDonald.
Okay.
Like, she's an amazing professor and, really taught us about camera work and how you really need to like make sure the lighting is correct. Because if you don't have good lighting, you're not gonna have a good look. But if you don't have good audio, you're not gonna have a good movie. That's important.
True. This is true. Actually, to that point, I like to bring this up a lot. Probably more than I should, but one of the best examples, I agree with you about lighting, but I think of the two things you need to sacrifice, if push came to shove, I would get rid of lighting in its entirety in service of sound. I watched this amazing short film in college, and it was the teacher's whole example of showing it to us was how important audio is. And essentially, it's shot on a Sony Handycam, and the idea is it's a guy walking on his cell phone. Like he gets a phone call while he's on a walk, and it's just him on the phone and the conversation doesn't even really matter. I don't remember the content of the conversation, but what I took away from it was like, this image looks like shit, but I'm so engaged in what's going on right now because of the way they edited the audio. Like, they just took it and they made a soundscape and they brought you like into the conversation as if you were right there, and like the tone of voice from the actor on the other side of the phone and the tone of the voice. And I was just like, this is so cool. Like, I just think that audio is so powerful in a film. Not to knock lighting, of course. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah. But anyway, that was just my little rant there.
But hey, it's something we agree on.
Yeah, it's true. Well, listen, man, I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. It sounds like you're up to a lot of really good stuff. I would be excited to have you back on the podcast as we, kind of learn what comes of your most recent short as it goes to the festival circuit, and as we kind of get, this one of these, whether it be Cruising with Vampires or any of the other scripts that you're working on. I would love to know how that all continues to work itself out and anything else you put your hands on.
Oh, I'd be more than happy to join you guys. Like, this is so much fun to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you came.
I'm glad I came here. I'm glad you guys invited me.
Hell yeah. So for anybody that's watching this episode and they want to check out, Mrs. Halloway or any of your other projects, where can they find you, whether it be Instagram or YouTube, Vimeo, or anything like that?
All right. Well, you can find me on Facebook, Connor Morley. You can find Alternative Pictures on YouTube. And on Alternative Pictures on YouTube, you'll get to find Mrs. Halloway and the 48-hour version of The Scene. No, it's not 48 hours. It's part of the 40-hour film project.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, Connor, thanks for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, check out Connor's stuff, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Great to be here, guys. Thank you.
All right, later.